The Heat Death Messengers. A sci-fi story. Part 1. The first fragment struck the heliopause like a stone thrown into still water. No one saw it with their eyes, only the instruments screamed. A ripple of impossible energy, a distortion in the solar wind, a brief moment where every magnetometer from Voyager 3 to the Kuiper Array registered a spike so sharp it looked like a blade. Then came the silence. A silence so complete it felt like the universe had inhaled and forgotten how to exhale. Dr. Kate Astro stood in the observation well of the Helios Deep Array, staring at the data cascading down the holoscreens. Numbers jittered, collapsed, reformed. The telemetry was wrong. Not corrupted, not noisy, but wrong, as if the laws of physics had been rewritten between 1 second and the next. "Run it again," she said. "We've run it 12 times. Replied Jen, her systems analyst. His voice was thin, stretched. "It's not an error. It's real." Kate swallowed. Her throat felt dry. Objects don't move at that speed. This one did. The fragment, the thing, had been clocked at 0.9999999999998 c, a velocity so close to light speed that relativity itself should have torn it apart. Yet it had arrived intact. A shard of matter no larger than a human fist, glowing faintly in the dark like a dying ember. And it was slowing down. That was the part no one could explain. The first message. The fragment was brought into the isolation chamber, suspended in a magnetic cradle. Pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Not warm, not cold, temperature refused to adhere to it. Entropy itself seemed confused. Kate leaned closer to the glass. "What are you?" The fragment answered. Not with sound, not with light, but with decay. Particles sloughed off its surface in patterns. Not random, not natural. They formed sequences, then collapsed, then reformed. Jen's voice trembled as he translated the first coherent line. "We are sorry. We are so sorry." Kate felt her stomach twist. "Who sent this?" Jen shook his head. "The decay signature, it's ancient, older than the Milky Way, but the matter itself is from the far future." "That's impossible. Everything about this is impossible." The second line appeared, slower, as if the fragment were struggling to hold itself together. "Entropy accelerates. Time unwinds. The end began before you were born." Kate stepped back. Her pulse hammered in her ears. This wasn't a warning. It was a confession. The second fragment. It arrived 12 hours later. This one was larger. A jagged slab of carbon lattice, cracked and pitted as if it had endured eons of cosmic frost. It tumbled into the solar system like a wounded animal, shedding particles that evaporated into nothingness. The message it carried was different. Not words, voices, echoes. Jen played the audio through the chamber speakers. The sound was faint, distorted, like whispers carried across a frozen ocean. "Help us. We didn't know. The cold is everywhere. Please." Kate felt the hair on her arms rise. These weren't recordings. They were imprints, the last thermal vibrations of beings who had lived in a universe so old it had forgotten how to shine. "Are these human?" she asked. "No," Jen said. "And yes. And something else." The voices overlapped, layered, fractal. Civilizations stacked upon civilizations, all speaking at once, all dissolving into the same final plea. "Do not let us be the last." Kate turned away. She couldn't listen anymore. The impossible trajectory. The fragments were coming from the same direction, a point in deep intergalactic space where nothing should exist. No stars, no galaxies, no radiation. A void so complete it was indistinguishable from the cosmic background. But the trajectory wasn't linear. It curved, backward, as if the fragments were not traveling through space, but through time, sliding down a slope that led from the universe's final breath to its vibrant, chaotic youth. Jen projected the path onto the holomap. A spiraling arc, tightening, accelerating. "They're not approaching us," he said. "We're intercepting them." Kate frowned. What do you mean? The timeline is collapsing. The future is folding into the present. These fragments aren't being sent. They're falling. Falling from where? Jen met her eyes. From the end. The third fragment. The third fragment was different. It didn't slow down. It didn't pulse. It didn't whisper. It screamed. The moment it crossed the heliopause, every sensor in the solar system went blind. Satellites rebooted. Probes shut down. The sun flickered, not visibly, but in the neutrino flux, as if something had brushed against its core. When the fragment finally decelerated enough to be captured, it was vibrating violently, shedding particles faster than the instruments could track. Kate and Jen watched as the decay patterns formed a single, jagged line. "It is too late." Then another. "We are you." Kate felt her breath catch. "That's not possible." Jen didn't answer. The fragment cracked. A shockwave rippled through the chamber, bending light, warping time. For a moment, a fraction of a second, Kate saw something impossible. A version of herself, older, gaunt, eyes hollow, reaching out through the distortion. Then the fragment disintegrated into dust. The collapse begins. The next 48 hours were chaos. More fragments arrived, dozens, then hundreds. Some were microscopic, others the size of asteroids. All carried messages. Some coherent, some broken, some so decayed they were little more than static. But the pattern was clear. Entropy was accelerating. Not gradually, exponentially. Stars across the galaxy dimmed by fractions of a percent. Black holes flickered. Dark energy fluctuated. Time dilation effects appeared in places they had no right to be, around planets, moons, even empty space. The universe was aging. Fast. Too fast. Kate stood in the command center, staring at the latest readings. "How long do we have?" Jen didn't look up from his console. "We don't know." "Estimate." He hesitated. "Kate, the universe is already dead. We're just catching up." The fourth fragment. The fourth fragment was the largest yet. A twisted mass of exotic matter, shimmering with colors that didn't exist in the visible spectrum. It radiated a cold so intense it felt like it was draining the heat from the room. The message it carried was the most coherent so far. A full sequence. A narrative. A history. Kate watched as the decay patterns formed images, ghostly projections of a universe billions of years older than their own. Stars long extinguished. Galaxies stretched thin by expansion. Civilizations huddled around the last embers of heat, building machines to trap the final photons. A voice emerged from the patterns, synthesized by Jen's algorithms. "We tried to stop it. We failed." Images flickered, machines collapsing, stars freezing, matter dissolving into quantum dust. Entropy is not a force. It is a destination. Kate clenched her fists. "Why send this to us?" The answer came slowly, painfully. "We did not send it. We are falling into you." The fifth fragment. The fifth fragment arrived without warning. It didn't decelerate. It didn't stabilize. It tore through the solar system like a blade, slicing through spacetime. Planets shuddered. The sun dimmed by 0.0003%. A number so small it should have been meaningless. It wasn't. Kate stared at the readings. The sun just aged 10 million years. Jen nodded weakly. Entropy is leaking backward. The fragment embedded itself in the lunar regolith, carving a trench kilometers long. When the team reached it, they found something new. Not a message. A map. A map of the universe's final moment. A map of the collapse. A map that ended at a single point. Earth. The realization. Kate stood alone in the observation well, staring at the swirling hologram of the collapsing timeline. The fragments weren't warnings. They weren't messages. They were symptoms. The universe was dying, and its death was reaching backward. Time was unraveling, thread by thread, pulling the future into the past. The fragments were debris, the last remnants of civilizations crushed beneath the weight of entropy, tumbling down the slope of time toward the moment where everything would end. Kate whispered, "Why us?" The answer came from behind her, Jen's voice hollow. "Because we're the last point where time still makes sense." She turned. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. "Kate, there's something else." He handed her a data slate. She read the line, then read it again. Her heart stopped. The collapse began 14 billion years ago. That the Big Bang was not the beginning. It was the first symptom. Kate felt the room tilt. The universe had never been stable. It had been dying from the start. The sixth fragment. The sixth fragment arrived as Kate stared into the void. It was small, barely a pebble. But the message it carried was the clearest yet. A single line, a final truth. You cannot stop the end. Then, after a long pause, but you can choose how you face it. Kate closed her eyes. The universe was collapsing. Time was unraveling. Entropy was accelerating. And the fragments were still coming. Falling, falling, falling. From the end of everything. Toward her. Part 2. The seventh fragment. The seventh fragment did not fall. It appeared. One moment the space between Mars and Jupiter was empty. The next, a crystalline structure hung there like a frozen thunderbolt, facets shimmering with impossible geometry. It was not matter as Kate understood it. It was not even energy. It was something in between, a boundary, a membrane, a scar in spacetime. Jen stared at the readings. "It's not moving." Kate frowned. "Everything moves." "Not this." The fragment pulsed once, and every clock in the Helios Array skipped forward by 3 seconds. Then it pulsed again, and the clock skipped backward by 2. Kate felt a cold dread settle in her chest. "It's not a fragment." Jen nodded slowly. "It's a temporal rupture." The messages had been warnings, confessions, symptoms, but this was something else. A structural failure. A tear in the fabric of causality itself. The rupture began to unfold. Not physically, temporally. Moments peeled away like petals, revealing layers of time stacked atop one another. Kate saw flashes. The solar system as it had been, as it would be, as it might have been. The sun swelling into a red giant. The earth frozen beneath a dying sky. The planets drifting apart like dust. Then she saw something worse. She saw the solar system empty. Not destroyed. Not decayed. Simply absent. As if it had never existed. The rupture snapped shut. Kate staggered back, breath ragged. "What did we just see?" Jen whispered. "A future that's already happened." The echoes of the end. The fragments kept coming. Some were tiny, flickering like dying fireflies. Others were vast, kilometers across, shimmering with the last heat of dead stars. Each carried echoes, not just messages but memories. Imprints of civilizations that had lived in the universe's final darkness. Kate watched one projection unfold. A species of crystalline beings huddled around the last black hole, siphoning its hawking radiation to survive a few more centuries. Their voices were faint, brittle. "We held on as long as we could." Another projection showed a machine civilization drifting through the void, their processors slowing as the last usable energy faded. "We tried to rewrite entropy. We failed." A third showed something stranger, a species that had abandoned physical form entirely, becoming patterns of quantum probability. They flickered like ghosts. "We thought we could outlive the end. We were wrong." Kate felt each echo like a weight pressing on her chest. These weren't warnings. They were epitaphs. Jen broke the silence. "They're not just falling backward in time. They're collapsing into us." Kate turned. "What do you mean?" "The fragments aren't random. They're converging. Toward Earth. Toward now." "Why?" Jen hesitated. "Because this is the last stable moment in the universe." The temporal horizon. The Helios Array detected something new. A wavefront sweeping across the galaxy. Not radiation. Not matter. Not energy. A temporal gradient. Time itself was thinning. Stars flickered as their pasts and futures blurred. Nebulae shimmered with ghost images of themselves. Black holes pulsed like dying hearts. Kate stared at the data. What's causing it? Jen swallowed. The collapse. Explain. He projected a model, a three-dimensional map of the universe's timeline. It looked like a river, flowing from the Big Bang toward the heat death. But the river was drying up. The future was shrinking, collapsing inward. The timeline was folding, compressing, unraveling. The wavefront was the boundary, the point where time ceased to exist. It's moving backward, Jen said. Toward us. How fast? Too fast. Kate clenched her fists. How long until it reaches Earth? Jen didn't answer. He didn't need to. The number on the screen said it all. 73 hours. The eighth fragment. The eighth fragment was unlike any before it. It was alive. Not biologically. Its structure was too alien, too abstract. But it pulsed with intention, with awareness. It responded to stimuli. It changed shape when observed. It emitted patterns that resembled thought. Kate approached the containment chamber cautiously. Can it hear us? Jen nodded. It reacts to sound. And light. And emotion. Emotion. Heart rate. Stress levels. Neural activity. It's listening. Kate took a deep breath. What do you want? The fragment pulsed. Particles sloughed off its surface, forming a single line. To be remembered. Kate felt her throat tighten. Why? The fragment answered slowly, painfully. Because we were not. Images flickered, civilizations erased not by entropy, but by the collapse of time itself. Their histories unwritten. Their existence unmade. The end does not kill. It erases. Kate whispered. You're afraid. The fragment pulsed again. We are what remains of fear. The last debate. The Helios Council convened. Scientists, philosophers, temporal theorists, and the few remaining leaders who still believed in the illusion of control. The debate was simple. Should humanity attempt to intervene? Some argued for action, to build machines to manipulate entropy to stabilize time, to fight the collapse. Others argued for acceptance, to face the end with dignity, to preserve what memories they could. Kate listened in silence. Jen finally spoke. We can't stop it. The collapse began before the universe was born. We're living in the aftershock. A counselor slammed his fist on the table. Then what do you propose? Surrender? No, Jen said softly. Understanding. Kate stood. The fragments aren't asking us to save them. They're asking us to witness them, to remember them, to give meaning to their existence. Another counselor scoffed. Meaning? The universe is ending. Kate met his gaze. Then let us be the ones who say it mattered. The ninth fragment. The ninth fragment arrived as the temporal horizon reached the edge of the solar system. It was enormous, a sphere of dark matter wrapped in a lattice of decayed particles. It pulsed with the last heartbeat of a universe older than time. The message it carried was final. A farewell. We are the last civilization. We built machines to hold back the end. The machines failed. Images flickered. Titanic structures spanning the void, siphoning the last energy from dying stars. Engines that bent spacetime. Networks that tried to rewrite the laws of thermodynamics. All crumbled. All failed. Entropy is not the enemy. It is the author. Kate felt tears sting her eyes. The fragment continued. We send ourselves into you so that we may live again. Not in body, not in mind, but in memory. Kate whispered. We remember you. The fragment pulsed once, then dissolved into light. The horizon reaches Earth. The temporal horizon swept across the outer planets. Jupiter flickered, its storms freezing mid-swirl. Saturn's rings shimmered, then vanished. Uranus and Neptune dissolved into ghostly afterimages. The horizon reached Mars. The planet blinked out of existence. Not destroyed, unwritten. Kate felt the air grow colder. Time itself was thinning. Moments stretched, warped, collapsed. The past bled into the present. The future dissolved. Jen's voice trembled. It's here. The horizon reached Earth's orbit. The sky darkened. Stars flickered like dying embers. The sun dimmed. Time slowed, then stopped. The final fragment. The final fragment appeared in the center of the Helios Array. Small, simple, a sphere of decayed particles, no larger than a marble. It pulsed once. A message formed. Not in particles, not in light, but in memory. Kate felt it inside her mind. A whisper, a thought, a truth. The end is not the opposite of life. It is the completion of it. She felt the presence of countless civilizations. Their hopes, their fears, their final moments. All converging, all collapsing, all becoming one. The fragment whispered, "You are the last dream of the universe. When you end, everything ends." Kate closed her eyes. "What do we do?" The fragment answered, "Remember us. And let us remember you." The collapse. The temporal horizon swept across Earth. Cities flickered. Oceans froze. Mountains dissolved. People vanished. Not in pain, not in fear, but in silence. Their histories unwritten. Their futures erased. Kate felt herself fading. Her memories unraveling. Her thoughts dissolving. But she held on. She held the fragments' voices in her mind. The echoes of civilizations long dead, long forgotten, long erased. She whispered into the collapsing void, "We remember you." The universe shuddered. The horizon closed. Everything went dark. The aftermath. There was no light, no sound, no time, only memory. Kate floated in the void, not alive, not dead, not even conscious in the traditional sense. She was a pattern, a whisper, a remnant. Around her, she felt others, the crystalline beings, the machine minds, the quantum ghosts, the countless civilizations that had fallen into the past. They were not gone. They were not erased. They were remembered, and in that memory they existed. Kate felt a warmth, faint, fragile, but real, a spark, a beginning, not of a universe, but of meaning. The fragments whispered, "This is enough. This is all any of us ever had." A moment, remembered. The last light. In the darkness, something flickered. Not a star, not a particle, a thought, a memory, a story. Kate felt it grow, a tiny flame in the endless cold. It was not heat. It was not energy. It was something older, deeper. It was significance. The universe had ended. Entropy had won. Time had collapsed. But the memories remained. And in those memories, the universe lived on, not as matter, not as energy, but as meaning. Kate whispered into the void, "We were here." The fragments answered, "Yes. And that is enough." The last light flickered, then shone. Not bright, not warm, but true. This is the end of the sci-fi story, The Heat Death Messengers. Leave a like if you enjoyed the story, and subscribe for more sci-fi stories. Thanks for listening.